Hello, everybody. Welcome into To The Point. We're doing well on this Tuesday evening, March the 12th. NFL free agency craziness. We have so much to react to. I got 3 pages of notes on all the signings, the quarterback movement. I want to react to the running back market. I want to tell you about teams who I liked what they've done over the last couple of days. Some teams that have taken a big hit. So those are coming up. Tail end of the podcast. We'll talk some hockey. Thatcher Demko, injured in Vancouver. That's a problem. Matt Rempe just got suspended. I don't think he should have got a game. I don't think he made head contact, but he didn't fight Curtis McDermott last night if he missed the game because it was a bit of a sleepy night in the NHL. Rempe suspended. Thatcher Demko and Gerrit Cole injured in the Bronx. Does that injury help Scott Boras and his clients finally get a job? If there is a team that will panic, it will be the Bronx Bombers. We know that. But that's forthcoming. Let's start with the NFL. I have to start today by giving kudos, props to, I think, one of the smartest football players to ever play the sport. This individual has won one playoff game over the course of his career, has been mediocre in the regular season, has never really been close to winning a Super Bowl, never really been close to winning an MVP, is over 35 years old, and yet, despite being 1-3 in the playoffs, despite all the things you might look at and go, that doesn't work, Kirk Cousins is one of the smartest individuals to ever play professional football. Because he turned a 4th-round draft pick from the Washington, then Redskins, into a career where he will make over $400 million when this contract expires with the Atlanta Falcons. $400 million. In all likelihood, he will never win a Super Bowl, despite the fact that they have a good team in Atlanta. He may never get to an NFC championship game. But he set his family, his children, his grandchildren up for the rest of their lives. I like Kirk Cousins. I thought he was great on quarterback, the NFL series. I grew an appreciation for him. But I am blown away by his ability to find contracts. If you're not familiar, yesterday, just after free agency opened in the NFL, Kirk Cousins signed a 4-year, $180 million deal to leave the Minnesota Vikings and to sign with the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta, his wife's hometown, Atlanta, a quarterback-deprived team, a team that should have been a playoff team last year, but they had Desmond Ridder and the Green Lizard, Taylor Heineke, under center. So they break the bank. They decide not to trade for Justin Fields. They decide to not move up in the draft. They bring in Kirk Cousins, 4 years, $180 with $100 million guaranteed. And that's $45 million average per year salary for Kirk D. Cousins. I'm just blown away by him finding these deals. Franchise tagged twice by the then Washington Redskins. They let him go. They don't want to franchise tag him a third time because he gets crazy money. He decides, hits the open market. Minnesota signs him to a record at the time, $85 million in guaranteed money. All guaranteed, his contract. Then plays out a couple years, signs a new 3-year extension with the Vikings with over $100 million in guarantees. And now he gets $100 guaranteed with Atlanta. That could possibly be $180 if he plays the games and puts up good numbers, which he normally does. But just kudos to Kirk Cousins. Good for him. If you can make the money, make the money. If somebody's willing to pay you because it's a weak quarterback market, which it is, then go get the bag. Now for Atlanta. Kirk Cousins at the age of 36 or Justin Fields. That's really the topic of conversation. Because the draft was going to be too complicated to move up, to stay. I think it gets a little hairy. But on August 19th, Kirk D. Cousins will be 36 years old, meaning he signed a contract until he's 40. Now, many quarterbacks have played until their 40s. You look at Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. More and more quarterbacks are doing it. But all that being said, he's coming off an Achilles injury. It's one of the most serious injuries in sports, right below a concussion. Not a mobile quarterback. But I think for Atlanta, the talent that they have on that team, Drake London, who was open more than any wide receiver last year. EPA per play, this is on ESPN.com. He couldn't get the ball. Neither quarterback, their offense wasn't tailored well, but you have Drake London, who was a 9th overall selection. He was pretty damn good at USC. I think he's going to be good with Kirk Cousins. I think he's going to have a first-round pick, University of Florida. He was awesome in college. I thought he was going to be a superstar in the NFL. Hasn't worked out. Inconsistencies, health, quarterback play. He has the best quarterback he's ever played with, including college. Bijan Robinson, 8th overall selection last year in the NFL draft. One of the most agile, durable, unique talents at the running back position in some time. He's already said he wants to rush for 2,000 yards. I don't think he's going to rush for that. He'll rush for over 1,000 for sure. He'll probably catch 35 to 40 passes out of the backfield. Again, Kirk Cousins played with Alfred Morris, good back. Played with Dalvin Cook, solid back. Alexander Mattison. You can go down the list. This is the best back that Kirk Cousins has ever been around. Bijan Robinson is an elite talent. Not to mention Jesse Bates, defensive side of the ball. AJ Terrell at corner is coming off a fantastic season, and the Falcons have a high pick in the draft to improve their team. I thought Justin Fields made sense because Justin Fields, like Kirk Cousins' wife, is from Atlanta. He was going to be relatively cheap. He would not cost as much as Kirk Cousins, but clearly around the league, Justin Fields does not have the cachet that some of us, including me, thought he might have. I thought the Steelers might value him. They went another direction. I thought the Raiders didn't really make sense, but they might do it because they're desperate. Luke Getsy is former offensive coordinator with the Bears the last 2 years. As we speak, Justin Fields remains a member of the Chicago Bears. New England, different direction. Tampa re-signs Baker. I mean, you could go down the list. The Raiders signed Gardner Minshew. Sam Darnold goes to the Vikings. So these jobs are being scooped up. And I like the move for the Falcons despite the fact that it probably won't be worth it, but you got to try. I'm going to juxtapose Minnesota and Atlanta. And who would have thought you're talking about Minnesota Vikings, Atlanta Falcons to start a podcast? Me. But the Falcons get the best quarterback available. Check. They needed to do that. Arthur Blank is in his 80s. I think he wants to win, or at least try to win, before he's dead. That might sound harsh. That's just the truth of it. You get old, you die. Sorry, liberals. So you get the best quarterback available. You pair it with a great tight end, with a great wide receiver, with the best running back in the NFL. Make the argument, maybe. Bueller. And then today, the Falcons signed Darnell Mooney, former Chicago Bears wide receiver, 3 years, $39 million. So you add a deep threat to this group. They have a team. Their defense was not a problem last year. You bring in a new head coach in Raheem Morris, who worked with Kirk Cousins when he was in Washington. They have a history together. This team has juice for the first time in a long time. They have hope. You look at it and go, hey, they could win the NFC South. Absolutely. Tampa should be competitive, I think. Carolina sucks. We'll see what Bryce Young can do in year 2, but that team's not good. That team's not good. They screwed up a Brian Burns trade, which we'll talk about. They're incompetent. New Orleans. New Orleans is shedding salary. Going to release Michael Thomas sooner rather than later. Sounds like tomorrow. He's not happy about it, but they're going to do it. Jameis Winston walked from that team today. They still have Derek Carr. They have Chris Olave, who's great. But you're over the number. You have to release players. You can't bring in anybody. It's inconsistent. Poor coaching from Dennis Allen. He for sure will be a head coach that probably should have been fired this cycle, but he'll be fired January next year. So it's a winnable division. At this point in time, hard to argue the Falcons don't have the best team. Although I do think Tampa's good. And I like their moves, keeping Baker, which we talked about. Franchise tagging Antoine Winfield Jr. Re-signing Mike Evans. They lose Shaq Barrett to the Dolphins, but they still have a team. They've won back-to-back division titles. They won a playoff game last year. Was in it till the very end with with the Detroit Lions in the divisional round just a few months ago. So they're a decent team. But I think Atlanta had to pay the money for the quarterback, and if they looked around and said, we like Kirk Cousins more than we like Justin Fields, which when it comes to just getting these guys the ball makes total sense, I think it's a smart move. A lot of money. And that's where we get to the Vikings. The Vikings are in this interesting position where they want to remain competitive, I believe, but I don't know if they should. And it's a weird position when you're a team that they lose Kirk Cousins. He's been their quarterback the last 6 years. He's been their guy. And he's gone. You have Kevin O'Connell, who I think is a really good coach. And you have Justin Jefferson, who's, one of the best receivers in the NFL. And Danielle Hunter's great. You might lose. They might not bring him back. But you got a defensive line that's solid. Competitive team. Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson. You get some weapons on that team, but you're in this spot where, are we competitive? Are we not? We just lost. So what did they do? They bring in Sam Darnold, former 3rd overall pick, former member of the Jets, then Panthers, backup quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers last year, to a 1-year, $10 million contract. This isn't a bad move. I've seen some stuff, you bring in Sam Darnold, he sucks. Okay. We don't really know if he sucks. And the reason I say that is his football was played with the New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers. And he played one game in San Francisco last week of the season. So, don't really count that. You play with the Jets or the Panthers over the last number of years, you are put into hell in a handbasket, and you're lucky to come out alive. The Jets swallow up quarterbacks and spit them out, and when they get spit out, they're disgusting. They got everything on them. They got every disease known to man, and you can't look at it the same way. Now, you can try to put lipstick on a pig. You can try to make it seem better than it actually is. We got Aaron Rodgers now. We know what we're doing. But it's like seeing a baby come out of the womb, and you have there's certain people in the world who see a baby and they lie to the new parents and say, oh, he's so cute. There's not a cute baby that comes out of the womb. You see a baby 2 days after it's born, it looks like an alien. Half of them have jaundice. I did. And guess what? I wasn't a cute baby. And I think you just be honest with the people around you in your life. If something's ugly, you say they're ugly. It'll probably be cute in a year, longer than that. 2-3 years, the baby might become cute. But second it comes out, it's not cute. I think I'd appreciate honesty. If I ever have a kid, knock on wood I don't because I can't stand them. Sorry, Dirk. But if that ever happens, tell me a kid's ugly. Who cares? Stupid. Anyway, my point here, bringing it back. Sam Darnold is an asset that we don't know what it is. It's like getting a vehicle on trade. Is it good? Does everything work? You got to test it out. He goes to a situation. Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkins, decent offensive line, good head coach, opportunity. Now, is Justin Jefferson, who needs a contract, is he going to stay in Minnesota knowing that the quarterback position is very crazy right now? It's up in the air. Who's our guy? I believe the Vikings are going to be a team that goes into the draft and takes one of these quarterbacks. The scuttlebutt is that they really like J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. I don't really like J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. Yes, he only lost one game in college, but he played the most simplistic, the most easy offense in the country. Great defense, run the football, don't create turnovers. Okay, great. To me, he might be the 5th best quarterback in the draft, but he might be the 6th to me. But teams seem to like him. Maybe they'll go with Bo Nix, who I like better. But you trade up, you get J.J. McCarthy. Maybe that's your option, and Sam Darnold is a stopgap quarterback for this year. But even if you bring in a rookie, who most talent evaluators would say he's not ready to play, or Sam Darnold, who's been a backup quarterback the last number of years, and the only other time we've seen him play was pretty dreadful in Carolina and the Jets with the ugly baby, that's not a perfect option. But then you look at the Vikings. They signed Aaron Jones today, who was cut by the Packers yesterday in a move I didn't really like. I understood it, but I didn't really like it when it comes to winning, and that's what they're trying to do. But you scoop up Aaron Jones for only $7 million. Cheap. Good running back. You have a good offense. And that's the pickle. Because for the Vikings, the Lions are a really good team. And if the Lions, even after losing a guy like Jonah Jackson yesterday, who's really important on that offensive line, and they lost a couple other defenders, even after those losses, for the Lions to miss the playoffs next year, I think would be a Mike Tyson uppercut to me into just thinking about it. They're a good team. They have a good quarterback. He knows the system. You're bringing the coaches back. All those things point in the direction of cohesion for the Detroit Lions. You then look at the Green Bay Packers. Similar story. Jordan Love, another year in. You bring in Josh Jacobs. You have great talent. I want to see what they do in the draft, but the Packers have been one of the best teams drafting players over the last number of years. So I trust them in that aspect to improve their team without having to spend big money, although they bring in Josh Jacobs and they scooped up Xavier McKinney, the safety from the New York Giants yesterday. So I like both. I don't really like the Josh Jacobs moves, but I love Xavier McKinney to add to their defense, which is the weak part of their team. So all that being said, and you're also going to have the Chicago Bears, who have the first pick, likely taking Caleb Williams, who brought over DeAndre Swift, who have the first pick, but they have the first pick because of Carolina. Chicago's better than meets the eye. DJ Moore, you got talent. So that division, while no cakewalk, I think Minnesota is in tough if they don't get a great quarterback. So the debate for them has to be, do we draft a quarterback that we love? And that has to be the decision. Do we love this guy? Because the single stupidest thing that teams do in the NFL is you select a quarterback because you need to take one. You're in the draft, we're up, we need a quarterback. Mel Kiper's needs for each team, you see quarterback at the top. And then you go take somebody that you don't have faith in, you don't really believe in, but you need a quarterback. Arizona taking Josh Rosen. We needed to take him. We needed a quarterback. It hasn't worked. He didn't play one season with Arizona. You can go through the list of QBs that don't work out, and you take a guy because you need to take a quarterback. Mac Jones in New England could possibly be on that list. So if the Vikings and their draft room love a quarterback, he's going to be a star, he fits in, he's going to be in this league for years to come, then you go draft that player and you try to compete. You try to get better. And you look at your roster and go, maybe we can be competitive a little while longer. If there isn't a quarterback that you love, Sam Darnold is a stopgap quarterback and you prepare for 2025. That might sound harsh. That might sound like you're giving up. But I would rather prepare for the worst than to have a quarterback spend those assets on the most important position, see it fail, and then have to crater and try to do what you should have done in the first place. Most businesses try to stay afloat when they should just file for Chapter 11, take it on the chin, and move on. Find a different venture. Get into another field. Not everything works out in life. But if you can avoid a mistake, and your reason for making the mistake is, well, I have to do this. We have to try it, right? I don't believe in what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it for a living, or I'm going to try this. That makes no sense. What logic is there in that thinking? I'm going to run with this idea that I have no faith in, no knowledge, no background. I believe this thing is going to fail, but I'm going to keep doing it because why? Because I have to? You don't have to do anything. For now. So I see Minnesota in this crossroads position where they need to make up their mind. Do you love somebody in the draft? If you do not, Sam Darnold is your guy for the year. And maybe you'll have success. I'm not saying tank. But in all likelihood, even if they draft a quarterback this year, and say it's J.J. McCarthy, or it's Bo Nix, maybe you draft up and you get Jaden Williams, but I don't think so. I think Washington's going to take him with the second overall pick. is Justin Jefferson going to want to play with a rookie quarterback or Sam Darnold? Or will he look around and go, I want to go somewhere else? Jalen Ramsey signed an extension with the Jaguars. Not long after, he was traded to the Los Angeles Rams and he became a Super Bowl champion. So these blockbuster trades can happen. They can be successful for the team that gets a player and has to sign Justin Jefferson to a big contract. Now, what team would that be? I mean, you can look around and go, Carolina makes sense. I don't think he wants to go to Carolina. It's a worse situation than Minnesota. As crazy as it seems, and bear with me, would he consider the Jets? Garrett Wilson, Justin Jefferson, Aaron Rodgers? A possibility. Kansas City would make sense, but I don't think they can pay him. Gave Chris Jones a lot of money. He would be awesome to have, but they won a Super Bowl last year and the year before, really, without a number one receiver. So they're going to deviate now after having all the success? Unlikely. Raiders? Yeah, but they don't really have a quarterback either, as we speak. So there are options. Houston would be fun, pairing him with CJ Stroud. But the Vikings and Justin Jefferson, they got some decisions to make. And I think the Vikings are going to try to sign him. They'll offer him a lot of money. And it may be impossible for him to turn it down. But I look at the situation, I think the Falcons did the right thing, and I think the Vikings did the right thing as well, because I don't think they wanted to pay Kirk Cousins that amount of money coming off a serious injury and get the same results that they've been having. Sometimes make the playoffs, sometimes miss. Get to the playoffs and lose in your first playoff game. Don't win any division titles. I mean, that kind of gets old. So now it's Sam Darnold for them and prepare for the draft. And I think they'll take one in the NFL draft. Will it be the right pick? Will it because they fall in love with him or just settle? We'll have to wait to see. April 25th, first round of the NFL draft. Other quarterback deals. Mentioned Baker Mayfield re-signs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Good deal for him. 3 years, $100 million, $50 guaranteed. Can be up to $115 with incentives. This is a fair contract. Baker didn't ask for the world. I think he knew what he is as a quarterback. He gets to go back where he has success. He gets to go back to a team that believes in him, a head coach that he likes. Play with Mike Evans. Play with Chris Godwin. Cade Otton. Try to win another division title. Compete now with Kirk Cousins. But he gets a fair contract. He gets a good amount of money. And Baker Mayfield is a middle-of-the-pack quarterback, but he's better than half the league. So if you can get a quarterback that's better than half the league, you'll take it. And it doesn't kill you long-term with the salary cap. You can deal with it if it doesn't go well or if something happens. So I credit Baker Mayfield. I credit the Bucs on not going crazy with this contract. It keeps your team competitive. And congrats to Baker, who dealt with it. Leaving Cleveland, going to Carolina, starting later the year for the Rams. Looked like his career was over. Signs a 1-year, $4 million deal with the Bucs last year. Win the division, 28 touchdowns. Win a playoff game. Come up just short to the Detroit Lions, but cover the spread, which is all that really matters. I like that deal. The Pittsburgh Steelers signed Russell Wilson. 1 year, $1.2 million. Russell Wilson now enters a quarterback room with Kenny Pickett, who was a first-round draft pick for the Steelers, but who has been extremely inconsistent over the course of his career, has been injury-prone. And now you're bringing Russell Wilson for no money. Broncos are paying all of it. And you get him for their quarterbacks this year is scheduled to make under $4 million for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is quite crazy. I like the gamble and I hate the gamble at the same time, which is oftentimes how poker works. You might have a straight, but you worry about seeing a flush come up. You might see the cards and go, oh, he might have it. He might need one club on the river. Do I trust that it's not going to come to him? Russell Wilson had 26 touchdown passes last year and 8 interceptions, which is a pretty good number for a year that was terrible. One game where the Broncos lost by 50 points and they had their issues. He played okay. I think his demise is being overblown. Do I think his play is better than his personality and the way he handles himself as a teammate? Absolutely. My big worry with Pittsburgh is Russell Wilson's narcissism and the way Mike Tomlin runs a team. Mike Tomlin runs a team. He doesn't run individuals. And Russell Wilson, since departing the Seattle Seahawks, has been an individual. It's been about Russell. It's been about Sierra. It's been about them as a couple. Him getting his own office. Him stretching for 5 hours on a plane to go to a game and leaking stuff to the media so it got out. I think the criticism of him as a person in the media is completely fair. Because the guy just comes off like an entitled douche, quite frankly. However, I do think he can still play. He had more touchdown passes than all of the Steelers quarterbacks last year combined. Trubisky, Pickett, and Mason Rudolph. He also had more touchdown passes. Russell Wilson had more touchdown passes in last year than the Steelers quarterbacks have the last 2 full years of play. So put that into perspective. You look around. He gets George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Najee Harris, and Jalen Warren. A pretty damn solid offensive line. They got a good offensive team. They just need a quarterback. And they bring in Arthur Smith, former head coach of the Falcons, to be the offensive coordinator, and that's what he was doing well in Tennessee with guys like Ryan Tannehill. If Mike Tomlin can keep his ego in check and just get him to focus on football, focus on the team, I think this marriage can work. I think he's still good enough to be competitive. He's better than the alternative. I didn't see them paying Kirk Cousins big money. Going up in the draft, unlikely. Clearly, they believe Russell Wilson is a better option than trading for Justin Fields. Baker Mayfield was not going to leave for Pittsburgh. It's a gamble, but they have a good team. And the fact that they have a good team means that they should be good. They always get 9 wins. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season as a head coach in his career. Russell Wilson, black, playing for a black coach, that might appeal to him. I don't know. Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson may compete to see who loves Jesus the most, but that might be a good friendly competition in-house. It's intriguing nonetheless. It's a no-risk signing because it's all upside. You're paying him $1 million to come quarterback your team. And if it doesn't work out, you cut his ass and you ship him out. Simple as that. But Russell will be motivated to earn a new contract to prove that he can still play in the league. He said on the I Am Athlete podcast he wants to win multiple Super Bowls before his career is over. Well, first of all, that's a stupid statement because every quarterback wants to win the Super Bowl every year, so that's kind of redundant. But you have a better chance of doing it in Pittsburgh than you do in Denver, in my mind. And you don't have to deal with Sean Payton anymore. So, good gamble by the Steelers. Let's see. Vegas Raiders signed Gardner Minshew to a 2-year contract. Minshew was the backup quarterback with the Colts last year. Played most of the season after Anthony Richardson had shoulder surgery. Almost got them to the playoffs. Almost got them a division title. I thought he might go back to Indianapolis because Anthony Richardson is an injury waiting to happen. You need a good backup behind him. But really, the Raiders right now, they have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell under contract, which is not going to get you to the playoffs. It's not going to get you that far. I think if you're Devontae Adams, who said he's going to stick in Vegas because he loves Antonio Pierce, and they improved their defense, and we'll link that up now. Christian Wilkins, former captain of the Dolphins, first-round pick, 10 sacks last year, led the Dolphins in pressures. Departs Miami, signs a 4-year, $110 million contract with Vegas, $86.75 million guaranteed. Good for Christian. I would have left Miami too for that money, especially because you're going to Vegas. So huge deal, life-changing deal for him. You'll pair Wilkins with Max Crosby. That is a two-headed monster. That's something that's going to be difficult to stop for opposing offenses. But you give Wilkins a ton of money. You have Max Crosby, Devontae Adams up front. You lose Josh Jacobs. But you have Minshew and Aiden O'Connell expecting to compete with the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs and even the Chargers is quite crazy. They're going to release Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think the Raiders are like the Broncos in the same division, like the Vikings, that all have stopgap quarterbacks but want to improve on the position, want to see what's out there. Because Gardner Minshew is a perfect backup. He can play if your starter gets hurt. He can keep you competitive. But he's not a game changer. He's fine, but he's not going to save your season. I think Wilkins, Max Crosby, it's going to be a better team. Antonio Pierce is head coach, better vibes. People are feeling better about being in Vegas than they did last year with Josh McDaniels, so that's already a better story. So I like it as a backup. But if Minshew's the start, if Aiden O'Connell's the starter going into the season, I don't care how good the roster is, the Raiders are not making the playoffs. Period. And the way quarterbacks have left the market, it's going to have to be a rookie to really come in and play for this team. in all likelihood. So, I don't know. It's a weird spot right now. Ryan Tannehill is still available. He's kind of Minshew-esque. Andy Dalton, no. I mean, a lot of these guys are off the board. Jameis Winston signed today with the Cleveland Browns 1 year, so he can be the backup quarterback behind Deshaun Watson. So Raiders bringing in Minshew, signing Wilkins. I like it. I think it's a lot of money for Wilkins. But if you don't got a quarterback better than Gardner Minshew before the start of the year, you're not going anywhere. So I think they're a team to watch come draft time. Or do they end up trading for Justin Fields? Because there are rumors right now that they're talking with the Bears about a Justin Fields trade. And it sounds like the Bears are going to have to really drop their asking price, going to have to take probably a third or fourth round pick for him. And I don't think Luke Getsy loved him last year in Chicago, so it sounds a bit weird with Justin Fields. But Gardner Minshew to the Raiders. Jacoby Brissett, he returns to the New England Patriots. Obviously was drafted by the Patriots. Played some games when Brady was suspended. He turned that into contracts with several teams. Played some good football with the Colts. Played some good football with the Cleveland Browns. Was the backup quarterback behind Sam Howell in Washington last year. I look at this. I think Brissett's going to be the starting quarterback day one for the Patriots, regardless of who they take in the NFL draft. They have the third overall pick. Now, they might trade out of it because that isn't New England's special. And again, that's not a stupid thing. If they don't believe in the quarterbacks, then don't take them. But Jacoby, even if they say they do take Drake May with the third overall pick, I wouldn't start Drake May the first week of the season because he's not ready to play. His mechanics, throwing, playing in rhythm. Jacoby Brissett can play and he can keep your team competitive. Period. He should have started games for Washington last year when Sam Howell was throwing the ball everywhere but to his receivers. I like Jacoby Brissett. He's got a big arm. The Patriots keep Kendrick Bourne in free agency. A player I like. Mike Gesicki leaves for Cincinnati, but you keep Hunter Henry. You cut Devontae Parker. Good call. So you have some good, not great players, but you have some good players. It's a rebuilding year for New England. Everybody knows it. Jacoby Brissett is a stopgap quarterback, but he can play. He can keep you competitive, and I think that's what Gerard Mayo wants to do year one with New England. And if they decide they like a quarterback and they want to take him in the first round, they can do that as well. So, again, a very solid signing by the New England Patriots. I like Jacoby Brissett more than most. Other quarterback moves. I mentioned Jameis Winston, 1 year, $8.7 million to go to Cleveland. Will back up Deshaun Watson. Will he start games? We'll see. Deshaun has some injury history, all that noise. But Jameis Winston, now a member of the Cleveland Browns. Tyrod Taylor, last night, signed a 1 year, $6 million contract to become the backup quarterback to Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. Was the backup with the Giants for a long time. Now becomes a backup with the Jets. Doesn't have to leave the city. Same facility. Can probably keep his locker. So all good stuff for Tyrod Taylor and a very good backup. Good insurance to have behind Aaron Rodgers. Marcus Mariota goes to Washington. They now have Sam Howell and Marcus Mariota under contract. They have the second pick in the draft. I fully expect them to draft Jaden Daniels with the second overall pick. He'll likely be the quarterback moving forward. So Marcus Mariota was the backup to Jalen Hurts last year. Had his run with Atlanta, but he's a backup quarterback, solid guy. good veteran. What do the Commanders do with Sam Howell? I don't know yet, but you're going to have 3 quarterbacks going into training camp in all likelihood. Drew Lock becomes a member of the New York Giants, becomes their backup quarterback. He replaces Tyrod Taylor, leaves Seattle after 2 seasons. He was in the Russell Wilson trade. So he departs, goes to the Giants. So another quarterback off the board. Ryan Tannehill, still a free agent, which is interesting because I think he's better than I thought. And I think he can still play. He had his tough times in Tennessee. We'll see if he can get a job. Joe Flacco still available. Andy Dalton. Some guys who have been in the league a long time. But really, it's about Justin Fields and what happens with him and where he goes. That's the intriguing thing to track right now. Because he's still a member of the Chicago Bears. They want to deal him before the draft. There's no real rush for teams. I think now they're waiting out the Bears saying, okay, we'll take him, but we're going to take him for way less than you initially thought. And do the Raiders just slide in, decide to take him? Does a team, does a San Francisco trade for Justin Fields? He would obviously back up Brock Purdy, but they lost Sam Darnold in free agency. They need a backup quarterback. I'm like, oh, they don't need him. Well, they could use it. Does Kansas City want Justin Fields? He can go sit behind Mahomes, learn some stuff, kind of recuperate and boost up his image a little bit, be on a winning team, and see what happens after that. Do the Eagles? I think he does play a lot like Jalen Hurts. That would make some sense. They lost Mariota. Eagles needed backup. It might become a situation where he goes to a team where he's the backup, where it was always, he's going to be the starter. If I was him, I'd be excited to go to, let's say, the Raiders, because I think they have good weapons. But I don't think the Raiders are going to trade for him because Luke Getsy was his offensive coordinator last year, and Luke Getsy was fired. So there's an offensive coordinator who gets the job in Vegas tell Antonio Pierce, yeah, the quarterback who I was working with last year, I got fired from that job. I don't want him again. Give me a fresh start with somebody else. I don't want it to be Gardner Minshew and or Aiden O'Connell, but let's go find somebody. Let's make something happen because I don't want it to be him. Probably a nice guy, good kid, but I was fired working with him. Clearly, we don't work together. So just something to think about. That's just the quarterbacks. We're touching some other stuff. That's just the quarterbacks. Crazy stuff happening. All right, where do I want to go next? The running back market really was the hot topic of discussion entering NFL free agency. What are running backs going to get paid? Are they going to be devalued? Are they going to get some respect after years of getting the franchise tag and you can't make any more money? Well, they did and they didn't. The guy who did, Saquon Barkley, former member of the New York Giants, great running back, second overall, leaves the Giants in free agency and joins the division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. Signs a 3-year, $37.75 million contract $26 million of that guaranteed. And that's obviously $13 million per year average for Saquon Barkley. He was 16th in the NFL in rushing last year, but he missed a few games, and he was playing behind one of the worst offensive lines. He goes to Philadelphia, where they keep Landon Dickerson. Obviously, Jason Kelce departs. But Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, they got some boys on that offensive line. The strength of that team. Couple things. People in New York slam Saquon Barkley for going to Philadelphia. New York fans, shut up. It's free agency. Your team could have signed him, and Philly was clearly offering the most money, which running backs should try to get as much money as they can, just like every other position. And if he could get $13 million per year average, $26 million guaranteed, which is well above any other running back during this period, Saquon Barkley is entitled to do so. Tiki Barber taking shots at Saquon Barkley and his justification. He called Saquon Barkley a turncoat. He called him a traitor. And his justification for that today on the Dan Patrick Show was, my job is to be a fan on WFAN. WFAN is a radio station in New York. Normally, this is just, I've listened to radio shows before. Normally, fans call in and give their opinion, and then the experts, whether it's on music, pop culture, sports, they can either agree, they rebut the argument, say you're an idiot, whatever it might be. But they're not fans in that position. They are quote-unquote experts in the field. So Tiki Barber's not a fan. He's an analyst. But he's basically admitting to him being a homer, which at least he had the honesty to do that, be a homer and probably be shitty at your job, as most homers are. But Saquon Barkley's not a traitor. He didn't go against New York. He did what was good for himself, for his family, and for whoever the hell else he wants to do it for. He got the most money. For the Eagles, DeAndre Swift, another running back, left the Eagles to go to Chicago. And he got 3 years, $24 million, something like that, with 16 guaranteed in that ballpark. So Saquon Barkley is better than DeAndre Swift. Harder runner, could catch the ball in the back. I like DeAndre Swift going to the Bears too. But they needed a better running game. How about Jalen Hurts? Keep this king competitive. They keep Landon Dickerson. They add Josh Huff in free agency, who becomes the highest paid undrafted player in NFL history. 3 years, $51.1 million, leaving the New York Jets. He had 10 sacks last year. But Saquon got the bag going through the franchise tag, going through a year last year. I don't think he was that happy. He leaves the Giants. He goes to I don't know what the Giants are doing. The Giants are in no man's land when it comes to their vision of their franchise. They reportedly were in on Russell Wilson, but they don't go for him. But you have Danny Dimes signed for another 3 years, big money. You didn't have to do it, but you did a stupid contract. So you got him and Drew Lock now. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that. You have Darren Waller pondering retirement because it was so miserable to play with the Giants last year. Your wide receiving core is middling at best. You bring in Devin Singletary to replace Saquon Barkley. Saquon's a whole lot better. I just don't know what the Giants are. I don't know what their plan is. I probably wouldn't have signed Saquon to that deal, but you gave Danny Dimes that huge contract, so if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. You might as well try to be competitive after having 5 wins last year, and your best story was Tommy DeVito for 5 seconds. But the Eagles did some stuff in free agency. They're trying to be competitive again. They're trying to push the envelope. They have to make decisions on if they're going to trade Hassan Reddick or if they're going to trade Josh Sweat after bringing in Josh Huff, because they have a whole lot of pass rushers, even though Fletcher Cox retired, but you're going to have to make some decisions on these guys and where they fit. But Barkley was the big get. I still think he's a good runner. He was the best guy available. Good for Philadelphia. Tony Pollard leaves the Dallas Cowboys. Was also on the franchise tag last year. Had a decent season. But he leaves Dallas, signs a 3-year, $24 million deal with the Tennessee Titans. He clearly leaves for a worse team. Tennessee rebuilding of sorts. Is Will Levis our quarterback? We could use some running help. Could use some help on our offensive line. Pollard's a solid back. 3 years, $24 million. I think only 12 of it was guaranteed. So, not a big pact. They can get rid of it when they need to. Again, a solid running back. Not a huge contract, but he does get multiple years, so credit to Tony Pollard. I mentioned the Packers. They cut Aaron Jones, who had a huge cap hit going into the season. They wanted to take a 50% pay reduction. He would not. They let him go. They had Josh Jacobs, former Las Vegas Raiders running back. I like Aaron Jones more. To me, Josh Jacobs, who led the NFL in rushing just 2 years ago, was dreadful last season. Ran like he had mud in his cleats. So I don't think that's an upgrade for the Packers. But you can only do so much, I guess. You like Josh Jacobs available. Did lead the NFL in rushing at one point, so you bring him in. Aaron Jones now becomes a member of the Minnesota Vikings. Today, Bengals were going to release Joe Mixon. He restructured his contract last offseason. They were going to cut him, save some money. Before that could be done, they swing a deal. They trade Joe Mixon to the Houston Texans, who lost Devin Singletary. We're looking for a running back. We're reportedly in on Saquon Barkley. Texans want to remain competitive. Want to see what they can do after making the playoffs, winning the division, having CJ Stroud. I like this trade. I like Joe Mixon. To me, he can play. And they pick up Tommy Townsend. This is Houston, the punter from Kansas City. They're reportedly in discussions with Danielle Hunter and Chase Young, who are both available. But I like Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon is now a member of the Houston Texans. And then comes the big man. Derrick Henry, entire career in Tennessee. They're going in a different direction. He knew it. Acknowledged the fans after the last game last season. And it became official that he's leaving Tennessee because he signed a 2-year, $20 million contract with $14 million of it guaranteed with the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore did not have a running game. Lots of injuries at the running back position. Gus Edwards leaves in free agency, waiting for reinforcements. Derrick Henry was rumored to Baltimore for months now. It was either going to be the Baltimore Ravens or the Dallas Cowboys. And Baltimore was willing to give out the money. Derrick Henry goes to Baltimore, will pair with the reigning NFL MVP, Lamar Jackson, with their great group of wide receivers. I love it. I think it's a perfect fit. They needed a Derrick Henry. They needed the thunder and lightning, everything he brings to the table. He's a game changer. He's a difference maker. Even at this age, he can still play. He can still have an impact. Derrick Henry is legit. And I love it for Baltimore. Because they had a rough day. They lost Patrick Queen to the Steelers. He leaves in division. He's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And good for the Steelers to steal him away. You see him leave. They lose a couple other guys that were on their team last year, obviously had the best record in the NFL. They keep Justin Madubuike, which is huge. Lamar Jackson is under contract. You bring in Derrick Henry. I doubt they'll bring back Odell Beckham Jr., who is a free agent. But it helps your team. You still have a great offensive line. Marlon Humphrey at corner will be, they're going to have players, certainly. And even picking late in the draft, they can find some good players. They're good at finding talent. I'd love to see them add another wide receiver of some sort. I don't know if they will. Zay Flowers is awesome. But he could use some help. But I think Derrick Henry fits perfectly. He wants to win. Baltimore has gotten close, but has never got to a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. 2-year deal to try to do it. Still in that window. The Dallas Cowboys have done nothing. The only move they've made in free agency, and this is normally their move, is they brought back their long snapper. They have not signed anybody else. I thought Derrick Henry they would because it made too much sense and they needed him. And you lose Tony Pollard. It's not a great draft for running backs. The first running back slated to come off the board is a running back from the University of Texas. He's coming off a torn ACL. It might only be in the second, possibly third round. So it's not loaded with the Jahmyr Gibbs, with the Bijan Robinsons, that level of talent. So seeing all these guys at least get contracts, some of them decent contract with decent money, decent guarantees, I think it's more about the running back market, who's available in the draft, than it was of, we got to pay running backs now. To me, that's not the deal. But I'm happy for guys like Derrick Henry. Austin Eckler, another guy who led the NFL in touchdowns 2 years ago. He signs a 2-year, $11.43 million deal with the Washington football team. So they bring Mariota. They grab Eckler. Washington also plucked from the Cowboys. They get Dorrance Armstrong, who I really like. 3 years, $45 million. He can get to the quarterback, can get pressures, can get sacks. And they bring in Tyler Biadasz, their center, 3 years, $30 million. Both those guys, obviously no Dan Quinn, new head coach. He was the defensive coordinator with Dallas the last number of years. So they scoop up a bunch of ex-Cowboys. To me, they got a whole lot worse. The Dallas Cowboys over the last couple of days. But nothing yet. Also, Dak has 1 year left on his deal. And there's always talk about a new extension. Cowboys are in the mix today for running back Zach Moss. A person familiar with the discussion said ultimately the price extended past their comfort point. Moss agreed with the Bengals on a 2-year, $8 million contract that includes $4.5 million in earnings this year. Also, former Cowboys defensive end Dante Fowler Jr. agreed to terms with the Commanders per source. So that's 3 Cowboys going to Washington with Dan Quinn. That's interesting. The biggest thing that the Cowboys have done is scoop up the big Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight happening in July at Jerry World. So at least they have that to look forward to, but nothing when it comes to free agency. But I think overall, running backs had a pretty good day. The Aaron Jones situation sucked. I'm sure that sucked for him. But a lot of them got decent money. A lot of them are employed on teams. So that's the best case scenario for a lot of these guys. Also, let's see. Minnesota. I talked to Minnesota before. They added Sam Darnold, obviously. They add Aaron Jones. They get Jonathan Greenard from Houston, who had over 12 sacks last year. 4 years, $42 million guaranteed, 76 total. Good player, can get to the quarterbacks. They keeps their defense competitive. They had Andrew Van Ginkel from the Miami Dolphins, 2 years, $20 million. I like that deal. Cheap. He can play. He can get to the quarterback. He's athletic. Blake Cashman comes over from Houston, 3 years, $25.5 million. So Minnesota aggressive, getting defensive players, helping their team, getting a new starter / backup quarterback, a new starting running back. But the Vikings were aggressive, trying to improve this. So that tells me they do want to be competitive. And maybe that'll be enough for Justin Jefferson to want to stay. But the Miami Dolphins, they lost 6 roster players. They had a rough last couple days. If you look at, they had Aaron Brewer, the center, former center of the Titans. They bring in Shaq Barrett. But their day yesterday, Robert Hunt gets $100 million to go to Carolina. Of course, he's going to leave. Andrew Van Ginkel departs to go to Minnesota. Christian Wilkins takes $86 million to go to Las Vegas, leaving Miami. What else did we have here? Safety Brandon Jones also leaves. They cut Xavier Howard. They released Jerome Baker. Emmanuel Ogbah left. So you lose a whole lot of pass rushing help. And the big reason when you go, why isn't Miami keeping any of these guys? They're likely going to sign Tua Tagovailoa to a long-term extension this offseason. I don't think it's the smartest plan. They're likely going to overpay him. But that's probably going to happen, so brace for that if you're a Dolphins fan, that Tua is going to be your quarterback long-term. But the Dolphins are a worse team today than they were yesterday. Same can be said for the Cowboys, as I mentioned. Other deals, Jacksonville signs Gabe Davis. 3 years, $39 million, so he's finally gone from the Buffalo Bills. Gabe Davis, Mr. Hit or Miss. Who knows? Excuse me. I didn't see that happening because I thought they'd want to bring back Calvin Ridley, who still remains unsigned, one of the top free agents available. 29, still a good receiver. Jacksonville reportedly wants to bring him back, but the Patriots are in on him. And they do need a receiver, as I mentioned earlier, so that would make sense. But Jags bring in Gabe Davis, so you have another receiver to the mix there as they're trying to have a bounce-back season. Landon Dickerson signs for a record extension with the Eagles. Jonah Jackson joins the Rams. Oh, and T. Higgins was franchise tagged by the Cincinnati Bengals. He's reportedly said they have never engaged in contract talks since last March of 2023. So he's saying, I'm done with Cincinnati. I want out. I want to go on to a contender. They're likely not going to be able to pay him, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow already has a huge deal. So he wants out of Cincinnati. He would be valuable to a lot of teams around the league. Carolina comes to mind. They could give him the money. Will he want to go there? A whole other story. But Teagan's is a great receiver. Him paired with Jamar Chase is one of the best tandem wide receiver combos in the NFL for a long time, mixing in Tyler Boyd, who's another guy who I believe he should be available right now for teams around the league. Who is a free agent. So he's still currently a member of the Cincinnati Bengals. But Tyler Boyd is available. 2 teams. I think he can still play a great number 3. So we'll see. Also, I talked about the Giants not knowing what they're doing. They traded for Brian Burns yesterday. Very good pass rusher with the Carolina Panthers. They traded for him. They only give up a 2024 second and a 2024 fifth, which I don't think is crazy. Because reportedly Carolina was offered a first-round pick at the trade deadline, and they didn't deal him then. And now he didn't have a great end to the season, so now you have to take a second and a fifth. Giants get him, then sign him to a 5-year deal worth up to $150 million, $87.5 million guaranteed. A lot of money. Very good player. And you compare him with Kayvon Thibodeau. I've seen experts say, oh, the Giants had the best first day of free agency. I don't view it that way. You have to give all this money to Brian Burns. You lose Saquon Barkley. Okay, yeah, Drew Lock. Okay, who cares? You lose Xavier McKinney to Green Bay, who to me was an important piece. To me, he's a smart player. You bring in Jalen Mills right now. Great. But you might have a good defense. I don't trust Daniel Jones at all. I don't want him as my quarterback. You're paying him a ton. You're in a division with the Eagles. You're in a division with the Cowboys, with Washington, who's added a lot of pieces and have the second pick in the draft. To me, the Giants are clearly the worst team, and I don't even know who the Giants quarterback's going to be yet. Maybe they turn around and have a shocker like they did a couple years ago. But to me, they're in the middle and they don't know what they are. They want to be competitive, but they're not competitive because they don't have the quarterback to be competitive. Their receivers suck. The running back is worse than it used to be. They are what they are, but signing that Daniel Jones contract was like a death nail to this team. I said it from the start, and it's killing them now. They would have had options if they don't have him. But you pay him all that money guaranteed because so many teams wanted him, not only you. I don't know what happens with this team, but it's not good for the Giants. I don't know where they go, but it's probably nowhere close to being up. But Brian Burns is a good player, and you have Dexter Lawrence, who is a good player, and Kayvon Thibodeau is good. So their pass rush, very much improved, 100%. That's free agency so far. A lot happening in the NFL. You forget about the NFL for 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden, it's back. That's what's so great. I love this hour and 15 minutes flew by. Talking NFL, I could do this all day. It's my favorite thing in the world. Not to mention, you get March Madness coming up, you get conference tournament games this week. Here's some breaking news as well. U.S. presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. approached Aaron Rodgers about serving as his running mate, and the New York Jets quarterback is open to the idea, sources told the New York Times' Rebecca Davis O'Brien. Pick a last name. Kennedy said he's spoken with Rodgers pretty continuously over the past month. They went hiking, which I did see on X. Former Minnesota governor and professional wrestler Jesse Ventura is also being considered for the role. Wow. That would be crazy. But we've seen some crazy things in the world the past number of years. So I can't rule it out. Can you be VP and also be the quarterback of the Jets? Can you do both? Robert Kennedy's an interesting guy. Radical on some things, absolutely. Smart on others, absolutely. If he was the Republican nominee, I think he'd win the election. To be that close to seeing Aaron Rodgers as the vice president, I don't think he's not going to win as an independent. But interesting. Aaron Rodgers is vice president. Ayahuasca retreats, darkness retreats, in the White House, get everybody centered. It might be good for them. Who knows? But there's still players available. I mentioned Calvin Ridley remains unsigned. Ryan Tannehill looking for a job. Danielle Hunter, who's been a great pass rusher for a long time. Tyron Smith, offensive tackle for the Cowboys. Justin Simmons, still a good safety with the Broncos. Chase Young. Josh Reynolds, he's going to be cheap, sneaky. Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle Duggar with the Patriots. CJ Gardner-Johnson, DJ Reader, OBJ. Bud Dupree, Devin White with the Bucks. Kyle Van Noy. Stephon Gilmore, former Defensive Player of the Year. Curtis Samuel, Tre'Davious White. So still some good guys. Still could see some trades when it comes to quarterbacks, players being cut that become free agents, like Michael Thomas, like Jimmy Garoppolo. So let's see what transpires down the line with those guys. And on Thursday's podcast, we will talk about any other free agent news that come down the pike. So stay tuned for that. To the NHL. Less than almost a month until the NHL regular season's over. If you can believe that. The NHL regular season ends. I'm going to tell you exactly the day that the season ends, because I don't even know it. NHL regular season ends on April 18th. There you go. A little over a month away. April 18th, season comes to an end. So that's about 5 weeks away. Well, the Vancouver Canucks got some bad news. Thatcher Demko, their number one goaltender, one of the best goaltenders in the sport, he's out 2 to 4 weeks with a knee injury that he sustained Saturday night in the Canucks blowout win over the Winnipeg Jets. The Canucks have played a lot of games, which is actually a good thing at this point. But the Canucks have played 66 games, meaning they have 16 games left. 16 games left. How many of those does Thatcher Demko get to play? Probably not that many. Maybe 3, possibly. He might not play again this regular season. if it's that long of an injury. Maybe he's back sooner, but it's goaltenders. They're weird. They're all weird people. I love you, Joshy, but you're weird. They're weird people. Here's the rub. Canucks currently have a 10-point lead on the Edmonton Oilers for first in the Pacific Division. Edmonton has played 63 games, so they have 3 games in hand on the Canucks. You win those 3, 87-91. You trail the Canucks by 4 points, and then it comes down to head-to-head. The Canucks over the next little while. Wednesday night, home to the Avs. Saturday, home to the Capitals. Nice. Tuesday, home to Sabres. Thursday, the 21st, home to the Canadiens. Saturday, the 23rd, home to the Flames. Monday, host the Kings. Host the Stars. Host the Ducks. That brings us to April. That's a pretty damn good schedule in the month of March without a number one goaltender. Casey DeSmith can beat all the teams I just named, maybe other than Colorado, who are playing well right now. And you get into April at Golden Knights, tough game, at Coyotes, cakewalk, at Kings, toss-up, versus Golden Knights, versus Coyotes, at Oilers, Flames, Jets. So, tougher, but this is not a brutal schedule. You can win some of those games. They have a good team as well. It's not just about goaltending. Edmonton this month. Wednesday, host the Caps. Saturday, host the Avalanche. Tuesday the 19th, host Montreal. Thursday the 21st, host the Sabres. Saturday the 23rd in Toronto. 24th in Ottawa. 26th at Jets, Kings, Ducks. So 2 similar schedules for the Oilers, for the Canucks. Oilers have to make games up. They've been playing good hockey as of late. The Oilers can catch them. I don't think they're going to because I think Casey DeSmith will be okay. I think the team will hang in there and play good hockey. DeSmith is not a scrub. He's been a very solid goaltender this year. It's not ideal to see Thatcher Demko go down at this time of year. You'd like to have him prepared to start the postseason, but it is imperative for the Canucks to get first in the Pacific Division. Ottawa news, Josh Norris done for the season, shoulder surgery. Ottawa's a straight disaster. They're playing the Penguins tonight. That's called the Crapapalooza. It's 2 teams that just stink, and I'll be watching none of it. Ottawa losing to LA, losing to Vegas on this past trip, losing to the stupid Sharks. I mean, there's no reason to watch the Ottawa Senators anymore. One of the biggest failures of the season. Josh Norris out. Shade Pinto missed most of the season. It's a sad state of affairs in Ottawa. We'll see what happens, but Josh Norris done for the season. Tonight in the NHL, my feature game, Rangers Hurricanes. No Matt Rempe, 4-game suspension. But Rangers and Hurricanes they're getting tight in the standings. Hurricanes are playing well. They trail the Rangers by 4 points. They both played 64 games. Hurricanes dominated the Flames, dominated New Jersey this past weekend. Freddie Anderson back between the pipes. They're starting to score goals, play that playoff-style hockey. I want to see the top 2 teams in the Central go at it. Also tonight, you got Panthers, Stars. 2 best teams in the NHL, if you ask me, in Dallas. That is must-see TV. Flames, Avs, Golden Knights, Kraken. It's a decent night of puck in the NHL. I will say, been watching a lot of the Indian Wells tournament in California. Novak Djokovic losing last night to an unranked player. Savano Tsitsipas losing this afternoon. Carlos Alcaraz still in it. Ben Shelton, Yannick Sinner. Tonight, that's a fun match. Zverev also playing Alex de Minaur right now. So you got some good stuff over on the tennis. And as I mentioned, you got this week the conference title games in NCAA. So you got early round conference games today. Teams in the ACC, Miami playing Boston College tonight. Winner will advance to play North Carolina tomorrow, so we'll see what happens there. But some fun games. And finally, baseball. Gerrit Cole, MRI in his elbow. Unlikely he will be available for opening day, per Aaron Boone. Not the best of news. Also, Aaron Judge is banged up. Bad ribs. Might not play opening day either. Now, bad ribs, much better prognosis than Gerrit Cole. Elbow injury, pitchers, that screams Tommy John, which isn't good, obviously. And you don't want to see that. But Gerrit Cole leaving the Yankees, if he was out for even if he wasn't out for an extended period of time, if he had the injury that Lucas Giolito does with the Boston Red Sox have no expectations. They don't really want to win. They want to tell their fans they're trying to win, but they're not really trying to win. If Gerrit Cole's out an extended period of time, it might be Scott Boras's favorite day, because I think the Yankees will sign one of Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery. Because clock's ticking here. He needs that to happen. And that sounds sick, I understand that. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Because ladies and germs, a week from tomorrow, baseball starts for the Padres and the Dodgers. 7:05 a.m. first pitch. Dodgers, Padres in Seoul, South Korea. And then they play the next day on March 21st. They have a 2-game set. They then come home, and a week later, on March 28th, the season opens. So 2 weeks from Thursday, baseball starts. If you just think about it that way. That's not far off. Pitchers banged up. This today reported JD Martinez and the Mets have mutual interest. He also likes the Angels. Sign a contract then, JD. It's not that complicated. I mean, Scott. But 2 weeks from Thursday. And they've been warming up in the Scott Boras spring training where his players go when they don't have a contract, which always happens with him. But it'll be here before we know it. One thing I will say about the start of the baseball season, March 28th is opening day. March 29th, Good Friday's the next day, so you have baseball the next day as well. Although no afternoon games, which is stupid, but I'll take what I can get. In the coming weeks, we will be doing a full breakdown of the divisions, what to expect this year. I'll give my predictions, all of that noise. We'll also have March Madness content preview next week, so that's all forthcoming. Tonight, some fun games in the NHL. You got Timberwolves, Clippers, Bucks, Kings in the NBA, which are solid games. Some good tennis at Indian Wells. That's what's on my docket. And also tracking NFL free agency stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. We'll be back with you on Thursday. Until then, take care. This is To The Point.